Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.
Samuel Anderson of Madison is a Republican candidate in the 48th Assembly District. Samuel, thanks for talking to WisconsinEye.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
I'm going through your campaign social medias. One of your chief campaign issues is legalizing marijuana, pardoning those those in prison on nonviolent drug offenders. Can you elaborate on that position, please?
Yeah, definitely. I've been a big proponent of the legalization of recreational marijuana in the state of Wisconsin for a long time. I think that it helps on a lot of fronts with a lot of the issues that we're having right now. When talking about balancing the budget, it could be a huge source of tax revenue for the state. And also pardoning nonviolent drug offenders gets people out of prisons and takes part of the burden off of the state of Wisconsin to pay for the incarceration of those people. It also returns breadwinners to their homes. It keeps the family structures intact and overall bodes extremely well for the state of Wisconsin.
Well, while we're talking about criminal justice issues, let me ask you this. The governor's 9-bill package that he wants the legislature to act on in a special session, although they didn't act yesterday, includes things like barring chokeholds, requiring the reporting of deadly force, a statewide deadly force database, ban no-knock warrants, uniform training standards for those that want to be police officers. Do you support the governor's 9-bill package?
I do wholeheartedly. I think that police reform is extremely important, especially in our current climate. We've seen that obviously the training that the police officers are getting currently is not good enough. We need to make sure that officers are trained correctly because it not only keeps them safe, but it also keeps the people that they're policing safe.
There's some Senate Republicans who want the legislature to convene to overturn the governor's statewide mask edict. What's your position on that statewide mask edicts, please?
Yeah, so I oppose a statewide mask mandate that does not go through the legislature. I think that Governor Evers just using his power to enact the mandate was unconstitutional. At the same time, I think that it's not really right to hijack the session, especially when we're still talking about very important issues like police reform. I think that it's really important that we leave the decision of whether or not to require masks to small businesses. Hellbox in Middleton is a great example. Hellbox decided that they didn't want people in their coffee shop wearing masks. They weren't necessarily kicking people out who were wearing masks, but they decided, hey, we want to be a place where people who do not want to wear their mask or do not feel comfortable wearing their mask can buy coffee. I think that that's perfectly fine. If you don't like that business practice, if you think that you're unsafe or in an unsafe environment, you don't have to go there. I think that the majority of the time, like we've seen with Menards before the statewide mask mandates were really a big thing, businesses like Menards, Home Depot, and other places realized that it was just a better business decision for them to actually require masks when entering their stores because it keeps their customers safe, it keeps their employees safe, and it takes liability off of them.
Let's talk about state tax collections. There was a report yesterday that in the budget year that ended June 30, state general fund tax collections were actually up. But there's concern that because of the pandemic in the current fiscal year ending next June 30, we could see if there was a drop of $1 billion, $1.5 billion. Would you as a legislator, would you want to cut spending or raise taxes and fees?
I would recommend cutting spending across the board. I'm never going to, if I were to be elected, I would never advocate for raising taxes on anybody.
Okay. The debate in the Capitol over who should draw the next congressional and legislative district lines. The Constitution says the party in power. The governor wants a People's Maps Commission. Your position?
I think it should be drawn up by a nonpartisan committee. I think that calling out the Republicans and saying that what they're doing is not correct based on the state constitution is kind of, kind of a false flag. I think that if the Democrats were in power in the legislature, they would do the same thing. And so I think that it really goes either way. And whoever is in power, the other party is going to be complaining when they redraw the maps. It's been that way for a long time. That being said, I do think that it should be a nonpartisan commission that does redraw the maps, and they should be fair based off population density.
Let's talk about property taxes. Wisconsin is a high property tax state. Because of that, schools and local governments have been dealing with caps, limits on their property tax levies for more than 20 years. If you're a legislator voting on the next state budget, should it continue caps and limits on what local governments can levy in property taxes?
Yes, I think it should. Like I said earlier, I'm never going to advocate for raising taxes on anybody. That includes property tax, income tax, anything like that.
And then what about the idea that to lessen reliance on property taxes, local government should be given a chance to have alternative sources of revenue? City of Milwaukee wants to levy its own half-cent sales tax. There's a plan in the Capitol that says, let's expand the 5% sales tax to some now exempt products and services and give that additional money to local governments. Do local governments need alternative sources of revenue?
I don't think they really do. I think that a lot of the funding that is in the state budget and the local governments currently is kind of directed to the wrong places. I can't think of specific examples right now, but I think that we really need to restructure almost completely what's being funded in our state, and that starts with criminal justice reform and taking people out of prisons.
Last year, the governor called to increase the gas tax. It's 30.9 cents to stabilize how we pay for our highways. Could you support raising the gas tax?
Nope. I do not support raising any taxes on constituents.
Okay. Hospitals. We've seen hospitals play a key role both statewide and nationally in treating COVID-19 patients. If you're in the legislature voting on the next state budget, do hospitals deserve an even greater priority than they may have in the current state budget?
I don't know if they deserve a greater priority than they do in the current state budget. It really depends on, where we are in the pandemic and what the need is. I think that obviously treating COVID patients is extremely important, and whatever funding they need, they should get.
Okay. U.S. Leaders of the U.S. Senate say in the next COVID relief package from Washington should include an exemption from lawsuits if a business or an organization has complied with CDC or other COVID regulations to protect customers and employees. A bill was just introduced in the state Senate that would give these businesses and organizations that would make them exempt from lawsuits. Do we need a state law on that that would exempt them?
I don't know if we necessarily need a state law. I think that the idea of that proposed legislation is good. Businesses, if they're cooperating with CDC guidelines and state mandates, should not be subject to frivolous lawsuits. Because obviously, as a business owner, there's only so much you can do to enforce the mandates that are in place. When people let's say somebody goes into a Quick Trip and doesn't want to wear their mask, the majority of the time, while the Quick Trip is doing their best to enforce the mask mandate and probably will pull that person aside and say, hey, look, you need to be wearing a mask. If there's some sort of threat of violence or something like that, that's obviously in the business's best interest to not kind of extend that out. And I think that being sued for stuff like that is not really a good thing.
Okay. When a school district or a local government plans a major public works project, should they have to give a preference to Wisconsin businesses? And the reason I ask is a study found that in 1915, out-of-state contractors got $72 million in public works contracts, but that $72 million more than doubled to $146 million in 2018. Local governments, should they have to give a preference to Wisconsin businesses?
They shouldn't have to give a preference to Wisconsin businesses. No.
Okay. Let's talk about some other issues. As I go to your campaign website, you want to deregulate and delicense businesses across Wisconsin. Why?
I think that one of the biggest things that's slowing the growth of the economy in the state of Wisconsin is the regulations that are put on small businesses and the licenses that they are required to get. I think that we need to lower the regulatory burden on all businesses in the state of Wisconsin and make it as easy as it can possibly be to start a business in Wisconsin. If you want to start a liquor store, you should be able to start a liquor store. If you want to start a bar, you should be able to start a bar. If you want to start a gym, you should be able to start a gym as easy as possible, because in the end, that's going to boost the state economy, create jobs, et cetera.
Just a follow-up question then. How would your proposal, if you delicense and deregulate, be sure that buildings are constructed safely and that businesses have certain building and other housing codes that protect their residents or those that work there?
I'm not advocating for the complete deregulation of the industry. That being said, there's a lot of licenses and regulations and burdens put on business owners when they're trying to start a business that shouldn't really be in place. I'm not at all advocating in the current state of Wisconsin. I'm not advocating for the complete deregulation of the process of starting a business.
Okay, what helpful perspective would you, as a young voter, bring to the state capitol?
Yeah, I think that my generation especially is going to become very, very crucial to the political system in the United States. I think that we, more than any other generation that preceded us, are not involved in politics and not interested in becoming involved in politics. And I think that it's extremely important that I set a precedent, or that other young people like me set a precedent of being involved, advocating for what we believe in. Whether or not you agree with what I believe in, I'm a young person, and I'm one of the only people who's currently involved in or running for office in my age group, in my generation. And I think it's extremely important that we show young people an example of somebody who's in their age group, who has their same interests, who wants to be involved and understands the importance of state politics.
Does the two-party system work, or are you one of those who says there may be merit in a new third party?
Actually, it's interesting you bring that up, because I self-identify as a libertarian. I've been a member of the Libertarian Party, but I decided to run on the Republican ticket this time around. So yeah, I think that generally speaking, the two-party duopoly has failed us, and we need more fresh perspectives in the state legislature. I think that another really important thing, obviously, is getting more voices in the presidential race. People like Jo Jorgensen, whether or not you agree with what she believes, Jo Jorgensen is a fantastic candidate and should be allowed to speak in the debates and shouldn't be excluded just based off of polling numbers.
Then final question, difference between you and your opponent on November 3?
Yeah, so I think Samba is a fantastic candidate. I actually, the night of his primary, I congratulated him. I think that he's a fantastic person. And more than anything, obviously, I'm running in a very uphill battle. I'm not going to pretend that I have a huge chance of winning based on my district. But my only real goal here is to start a conversation and show that Republicans have a voice in Dane County, that there are other sides of these issues that aren't being represented in Dane County. And I just want to start a dialogue with Samba. I've reached out a couple times and I have not gotten a response yet. But I really just want to sit down, talk about certain issues, and make sure that Samba is, or either me or Samba, whoever gets elected, is best equipped to represent the constituents of our district, no matter what party they identify with.
Thank you. Samuel Anderson of Madison is a Republican candidate in the 48th Assembly District. The election is November 3. Samuel, thank you for talking to WisconsinEye.
Thank you.
Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.